the Stony Island Arts Bank. My name is Devin Mays. It's a pleasure for me today to introduce you to both Theaster Gates and Linda Johnson Rice. Before we get started, I just want to say a few things. First, a big thank you to the Theaster Gates studio team, as well as the Johnson Publishing team, and as well as Terra Foundation, Dree House, and Art Design Chicago for allowing this to happen. This is amazing. Thank you for giving us a space to explore Black spatial imagination. This means a lot to me, this means a lot to the community. And I won't belabor the point. So without further ado, please welcome me, giving a round of applause for Mr. Theaster Gates and Linda Johnson Rice.
Right on. What's up, y'all?
Am I on?
Happening?
Can you hear me? Yes. Good. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you just give a hand to Linda Johnson Rice?
I'm happy to be here, so.
You looking good.
I did the best I could with what I had.
Linda, I've never seen so many people in this room. And
It's a full house.
I hope the fireman not here.
I hope in the heat nobody faints.
I've learned so much about the things. How y'all doing out there? You know, what's so beautiful, so I have to remind us, we're on 67th Street
Yes, we are.
in Stony Island.
Yes, we are.
We're on Stony Island between 67th and Blackness. Talking to Linda Johnson Rice on Stony Island in an old bank that's now an old bank. And that feels good. And it feels good, Linda, to be in this former bank that is a kind of place for deposit and repository, and to have your things land up in this cultural repository. Y'all know what I'm saying? So I want to thank Linda again with your hands, if y'all would thank her again with your hands.
Well, first of all, thank you, Theaster, for having me, and thank you for this exhibition. You know, I'm born and raised in Chicago, so I've driven past here and rode past here, all my life. So I remember this as a bank, and then as a very dilapidated, vacant building for years. And when I first met Theaster, I don't know how many years ago it's been, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we met at a mutual friend's house for dinner. And Theaster is very obviously outgoing and very charming. And so, oh, you're welcome. And so we just got along very well. And so he was talking to me about what he wants to do in his art, and he was, has this meteoric career now, beyond meteoric. And he said, I'm looking at this space, and come on to the Dorchester project, and I looked over there. I said, this is amazing what you've done in the neighborhood. It's unbelievable. And then he said, but I want to buy this bank. And I'm like, the bank on Stony Island? He said, yep, that's the one. I said, okay. So he brought me over here, and I swear, where you're sitting now, you couldn't walk. There was no floor. Nothing was up here. It was a kind of a disaster. But in a way, it had what I would call a decayed elegance to it, because it's a beautiful building, but it needed a lot of love. And so it took someone like Theaster, who I think has tremendous,
Stubborn.
and who has tremendous vision. Vision. And that, that's really all it takes. It really just takes one person with a vision to make a change. And that's what you did here. That's what you did with the Dorchester project. And so I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you, ma'am. So I have some questions.
I have some answers.
And I was trying to channel some of the energy that's been coming at me as people understood that we were going to have this conversation. So my questions are an amalgam of your questions to me about Linda and my own questions. On the second floor, Linda, we have a bunch of furniture. That furniture used to be in this building that was the headquarters of Johnson Publishing Company. I am the big I'm very interested in some of your memories of that building. And I want to know what you got into and what other people got into in that building. Can you talk about the things that happened?
This is a public forum.
Okay.
To be a little bit careful.
We can keep it clean.
Well, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about Johnson Publishing Company and about the building. My father, it took him, I think, 10 years to save the money to buy the land to build the building. And he did it. He got it done. And the architect was an African-American architect named John Matusame, who did, I think, a really brilliant job. It's a very concise building, very streamlined. And so, I remember when we opened it in 1971. Yeah, 1971. And the Mayor Daley, he cut the ribbon for the building, and it was, there's a funny story because the building has a driveway, and it still today is the only building that has a driveway off of Michigan Avenue. So you can drive right underground. There's a parking lot. And the driveway goes on Michigan Avenue, and then it exits through the alley. And so that really wasn't exactly what you were supposed to do. And there wasn't really an ordinance to build a driveway on Michigan Avenue. But my father and Mayor Daley at the time were very good friends and smart. And so Mayor Daley said, well, I know that you can't have an entrance on Michigan Avenue, but it doesn't say that you can't have an exit on Michigan Avenue. So if you're smart, John, and I know you are, you'll know which one to use as the entrance and the exit. So that's exactly what they did. And so I spent a lot of, I grew up there. I spent my life going in and out of that building.
But what does that mean, you grew up there? Like, my daddy had a barbecue pit on the west side. And when I say I grew up in the barbecue pit, after school, after I get back from Lane Tech, I would have to go make chopsteaks at the barbecue pit.
Okay,
what does that mean for you?
I didn't do that. I didn't do that.
You talking about growing
Yes, absolutely. Because, first of all, you're in a space that is purely creative. You're working with, I was having fun with incredible writers and editors and graphic designers, although we called them art directors at the time. And it was just an energy. It was alive. Every floor was different. Every floor was decorated different. The floor for Jet Magazine, for those of you who knew Jet Magazine, small pocket size, racy, fun. So that floor was all leopard. The walls were leopard. The carpet was leopard, everything was all leopard, because it reflected what was going on. It was a hot, sexy floor. Yeah. And then the ebony floor was very serene and very calm and much more open space and had our archive of photos there. So everything was very, very different. Each floor was different, and each had a personality. And, I spent so much time there that it became my second home. And I cannot tell you how many incredible people came through those doors. And it was at a time when if you were a celebrity or anybody of importance in the African American community, you could not come to Chicago and not come to Johnson Publishing Company. You were welcome there with open arms. It was your home. Our home was your home. And we had an incredible, this was great. We had a cafeteria that was amazing. And, somebody remembers the cafeteria. Okay, so here was the deal. So my father decided that the best way to keep everybody inside was to have the cafeteria. So that way you couldn't go out for lunch, you couldn't take long lunches, you couldn't do any of that. But the only people that really didn't eat in the cafeteria were the salespeople, because they were supposed to be taking clients to lunch. So, but the cafeteria was amazing because you could eat for $1 a day. And literally, we would serve steaks. And so if you could eat 10 steaks, you could eat 10 steaks for $1. But it was a very nurturing environment. It was a very, very cool place. Very cool place.
That's so cool.
But I think that the important thing that I think a lot of people will see if you go through the space here is the library that has, I don't know how many books you have now. I guess it's a 15,000 books or something like that came out of our library in our old building, because at some point, and this was really hard, it was a very, very bittersweet decision to have to sell the office building, but at some point you have to make a decision, and I had to decide, is it the business or is it the building? And it really is the business, because whatever my father built is going to last in perpetuity, so that's fine. So I just said, you know what, we're going to have to sell the building. It's 110,000 square feet. We just didn't need all that, and it was just the overhead to keep it was tremendous. The cost was tremendous. But so I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this whole library of books? I'm like, where am I going to take these books? So Theaster and I get to know each other, and I mentioned it to him. Why did I mention this to Theaster? So if you all know him, please don't ever mention anything to him, because he's going to take it and he's going to run with it. So I said, you know what? I'm just thinking, we got all these books. I don't know what to do with them. Theaster said, I'll take them.
I tried to act like, okay. I tried to act like, I was like, count to 5. Have a serene look on your face.
Instead of your tongue hanging out like, I'll take them.
Help her know that this is going to be hard work. And then say, let me think about it. But that didn't happen.
That so absolutely did not happen. No, Theaster said, I will take them. I said, okay, that's fine, but you have to get them out. I mean, there's a lot of books here. So, and there might even be some people here who worked on the team, but he had an incredible team that came in, and they were in the library for months, and they cataloged every book, and they treated every single copy like it was a piece of art, which was amazing. So they cataloged every piece.
Thank you, studio team,
Yeah,
all
they did
around,
an
Reed Bell,
amazing job.
Kay Hadley Williams, Tad Cowan, David, studio crew, Mike Holloman.
They did an incredible job. So not only did Theaster take the books, but he took the bookshelves. So he took everything he could possibly take.
They were the best walnut veneer and solid walnut bookshelves. I ain't never seen no bookshelves like that, with the little brass, little knobs. They're so good. I mean, in a way, Linda, we're starting in the middle of our relationship, but I mean, I really think that it's important that this, in the company of many, that we really tell this story, right? So we having dinner, and, Linda says, I want to see, we were introduced because we didn't know each other. Right. So that's already a thing. Like, how is it that we don't know each other? So that's a Black thing that is about, like, how many layers of cultural access and non-access people have. So that's the thing. So then, of course, a Jewish couple brought us together, right? So then we having dinner, and then some art collectors are like, hey, y'all need to know each other. And in a way, they help validate us to each other. So it was like, oh, well, if you hanging out with the y'all hanging out, then you must be cool. All right, y'all. But that was interesting. Okay, so that's, before we even get to, so then Linda's like, on GP and on Jewishness, he cool, right? Which is awesome. And so Linda came to my house the next week, came to Dorchester in the Suburban, looking good, And I was like, wow. And she got out and I saw.
Well,
anyway, it was amazing.
You should never expect anything you haven't inspected.
Come on, talk about it. Come on, talk about it.
I wanted to see what I was getting into.
And so we go to Dorchester, and it's humble. It's a little building, the archive house. But I had some old books in there from Prairie Avenue. And she was like, oh, you like books? We got some books. Linda was like, I got some books, won't you come by? It was the entire 7th floor. It was the 7th floor of Johnson Publishing Company, right? And it was one of these moments where, you know, whatever, okay, Sanford and Son, okay, whatever. There was another thing that happened, y'all, that had to do with like the black heiress of the most important image manufacturing company in the world said to an artist who she barely knew, oh, I got some books. And then gave me permission to, for the first time, move into her space, loosely catalog these books that had already been immaculately cared for. Thank you, Vicky. Where Vicky at? Where Vicky at? Raise your hand, Vicky. Stand up. Vicky, stand up.
Vicky's amazing. She's amazing.
Vicky's been the keeper of
She has.
things.
Yeah.
John, where you at?
I'm right here.
John Roach. Stand up, John.
He's already standing.
Yo, this is John Roach.
Okay.
How many people have worked for Johnson Publishing in this room? Raise your hand. Y'all, I'm telling you, this ain't I'm not just having no talk with Linda Johnson Rice. What John Johnson and Linda has done has created opportunity for black creatives for the last 70 years. Oh, you're a model? Cool, we can do, oh, you photograph models? Oh, cool, you're an accountant? Great. You're a PhD from Yale? Awesome. We will publish your dissertation. Hey, what are you writing about? Oh, you're a Detroit expert? Oh, that needs to be in Negro Digest. Oh, what year is this? That's in Black World. You guys, they weren't just doing Beauty of the Week. They were doing Beauty of the Week.
I mean, we did Beauty of the Week.
Right? On the leopard floor.
But you know, it's
Linda?
funny that you mentioned that because the Beauty of the Week really, it really was about a celebration of African American women and their beauty. So it wasn't just, you put a woman in a swimsuit and just put her on the page. That wasn't it. It was really about the celebration of us and of us as black women. So that's what he's talking about when he talks about Beauty of the Week. Page 42 in Jet. I remember.
42, ladies
I remember
and
it very well.
Come on.
I remember it very well. So anyway, I met Theaster, and you know how when you meet someone, I trusted him in my gut. I just trusted him that I knew he would take care of these books. And so I guess when you open the installation, it's been 3 years now, or 4 years, and I was here for the first time, I was in tears. I had no idea that it was going to look the way it looked, and honestly, it looks better now than it did in our office. And you did an amazing job. And I mean, it's an old library. I mean, we had to, does anybody remember the Dewey Decimal System? Okay, that's what we had. we had a Dewey Decimal System, and then finally they did get computers. But so it's very much an archival library. And so actually, some of the books that you have here, you have signed books by Alex Haley, you have books by Richard Wright. I mean, it's quite a collection.
It's really special.
Yep.
I'm just gonna keep thanking Linda over and over again.
Oh, don't do that.
Because it's really, you guys, yeah. Thank you, Linda. It's really sweet. One of the other things I wanted to talk about, Linda, is just how not only you're growing up, but your professional career has also been anchored in the company. And I thought it would be really important because often when I'm citing Johnson, I'm thinking about John.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Eunice.
Right.
I'm not talking about your mom. And I'm also not talking about your leadership and the other amazing, I want to say badass, but I said I wasn't going to curse. The other amazing people around you. And I wanted you to just talk a little bit about not just your growing up, but your professional career in the company and how that progress happened over time.
It's very interesting. For better or for worse, I have never worked any place else but Johnson Publishing Company. So I would probably be terrible at trying to get another job. So I worked with my parents. I mean, I grew up there. After school, I would go to the office. That was my home away from home. And interestingly enough, neither one of my parents, neither John or Eunice Johnson, ever said to me, "We want you to come and work in the family business." They never said that. But they were smart. They had me come to the office. And so, where else can you go and you're sitting there and Muhammad Ali walks in? Okay, this is good. Or, here comes Diana Ross. That's good. But then here comes the Jackson 5. That was it for me. I was like, okay, I think this is really a good place to work, a good place to be. But it was exciting. It was exciting and interesting. And I first started off, I did not start off working for my father at all. At all. I mean, as a kid, I went to Europe with my mother because she was buying clothes for the Ebony Fashion Fair. I don't know how many people here remember the Ebony Fashion Fair fashion show.
How many people remember Ebony Fashion Fair?
Oh, that's good. And so I started really going with her, when I was really young. So I started working with her, and then as I got older and I went off to school and came back and started working a lot closer with my father and on the advertising side and the editorial side. So it's been an incredible experience, but they're big shoes to fill. They're very, very big shoes to fill. And I think about that, but I don't dwell on that because I decided that if I dwelled on that, I would never be able to make a decision. I would just be so stuck. And so because of that, I think I had a very good foundation, but I have to tell you, as my parents aged, and my father died in 2005 and my mother died in 2010, I realized that this was all on me. And the business had changed. I mean, it's incredibly challenged, and it's a challenging business, and it continues to be. And I think as a result of that, we had two businesses under Johnson Publishing Company, two main businesses. So we had the media business, which is Ebony and Jet, and we had Fashion Fair Cosmetics. And at some point, you could really see that the media business was shifting. And there's no other way around it. There's no getting around it. The print business had changed. And I had to make another difficult decision. Selling a building was one. Another difficult decision is selling Ebony and Jet. I mean, that's monumental. That's my life. That's what my parents worked for and built up all their lives. But it became a drain on the company and a drain on the cosmetics business. And so you have to make a determination here. And it is a business, and no matter what, John H. and Eunice Johnson will live on in perpetuity, and the brands are still alive and vibrant and strong. And so I sold them in May of 2016. And it was important to me that they go to an African-American company, so it was a private investment company. And they've gone on, and so we're still in print, but print has shrunk. I mean, it's a smaller business, and the digital piece is increasing. And so I'm still chairman emeritus of that because Ebony and Jet are in my DNA, so I don't go very far away from them. So I'm still involved in that. But the real point of the business now is really our Fashion Fair Cosmetics, and that's going through a really, it's a tough time and it's a challenging time at that business, but I love it, and so I'm determined to see them grow and to see it flourish. The other piece that we have, you got the library of books, but you didn't get the archive of photographs, which we have an archive of approximately 4 million photos, which is amazing. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. Because remember, this is an arc of 70 plus years of chronicling everything that happened within we think everything of important that happened within the African American community. So we have that archive, and so those are the two pieces of the business that are still around. Although the archive, I have to say, is probably going to get We're probably going to sell that, to make a transition on that so that we can really develop the cosmetics business. But these are things that you have to do. I mean, there's no standing still, there's no stagnation. The world is moving way too fast. And so you got to make these changes.
Well, you know, Linda, I think in a way it's actually very generous of you to offer up all your personal information about the transition. But I think a lot of us, I know that when the announcement was made that you were selling Jet, people had a lot of feelings because, you know, they felt their identity tied to the company in a strange way. Like, in a way, it was like you were selling blackness or something. And it's like, but the truth is, it's a company. And so the courage to make those kind of decisions, and that I applaud you. It also makes me think, and this is what my little artist brain or with my artist hat on, is that you've also been generous. Come on, sit down, Alton. You've also been generous to me and a whole bunch of other artists at giving us access to images, access to historic content. David Hart, we have a couple of his photographs in the other room, giving us access to the building. And it's like, in a way, it's not just the legacy work. There's the legacy work, but also people are starting to do new and interesting things, either appropriating those images from online or out of the magazine directly, like Lorna or Ellen Gallagher, or going back to the original source material, revisiting that and remixing it. So I feel like the company has also provided all of this creative life for all of us that keeps it moving forward in a way.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I remember, I'd have to remember how many years ago this was. Maybe it's 2 years ago or 3 years ago. The Studio Museum in Harlem did an exhibition, and they gathered several artists, I can't even remember how many, that had been influenced by Ebony and Jet. And each one of them did a piece all about Ebony and Jet, and it was an incredible exhibition. So in that way, when you combine the creative and the arts and the written word and photography, it lives in perpetuity. So no matter what happens, whether it's a building or a sale or any type of transition, it lives on in perpetuity, and that's what artists are allowed to do. That's what gives you that free reign, which is wonderful. So I thank you for that.
Hey, well, I'm just gonna keep thanking you. Because
wait. Let's talk about.
It's so much to talk about.
Hold on. So let's talk about in here on the second floor and the furniture that you have. So, all right. So you know what? Theaster's like my repository. So when we sold the building, my father's floor, which was incredible, all custom made, all that good stuff. I said I need a place for those pieces to land. And of course, you raised your hand.
I was like, okay.
So what you see here on the second floor is really just a snippet of what really was in the building. So there's you'll see the alligator desk, which actually is not my father's desk. That was the receptionist's desk. There is an IBM Selectric typewriter that's in red alligator. There are wonderful pieces of art and sculpture that came off of my father's private floor. And I think what you've done here is really great because you've sort of given them a new life and a purpose and an existence. So that I think is really great.
So I want to stay on that for a little while, Linda, and maybe talk about that in relationship to the bank. Because when we opened the building, we didn't really know what we were going to do. We had to tell the city, oh, well, you know, we're gonna have, you know, 5 renters, and we're gonna have a cafe and we had to say things.
Of which you don't have any of that.
Well, it worked out. It was like, if you can find another way to get rent, let's get rent and keep the space. But I knew that I wanted the space to be flexible, and I wanted time to pass so that things could emerge and kind of come into their own, rather than kind of predetermining the program too fast. Because it's like, maybe what we need today would be different from what we need 10 years from now. Or what we said to the city 3 years before the building was open, things were already changing in the neighborhood. So it was like some of those things didn't make sense, you know. And so we said to the city that it was going to be a repository for cultural things, right? We about a year in to the negotiation with the city, you offered me the library. And it was really like that moment that I was like, it was like you gave the building a heart. You know what I mean? It was like it needed a vital, singular thing that could if nothing else was happening, it would do that. And I think the library really did that. And so the beautiful part of not over determining the program, even though it seemed like illogical, it meant that there was room in the space for your things. Okay. So the bank for me in that sense is a waiting repository for Black material things, because those material things are the reminders that like, oh, there has been a legacy of Black entrepreneurship in Chicago. We don't always know it. We may not know all the histories, but it wasn't just your daddy who was doing amazing things. Like, I keep thinking about Don Cornelius. Like, I needed to know Don Cornelius. Did you know Don Cornelius?
I have met Don Cornelius, yes.
He's dope. You know what I mean? It's like, I need to turn my studio into, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of like, if everybody, I'm going to turn my studio into like a studio production club.
Line?
Yes. You know, but like this spirit of Black entrepreneurship, I feel like, man, I want some of that energy in this building, and it requires another kind of thinking. So, Art Design Chicago. Anybody here from Art Design Chicago? Raise your hand high. Look at all them hands. Look at those beautiful hands. So listen, what's beautiful is that Art Design Chicago gave us the reason to focus on Black design, right? And, you know, I was trying to think, how could the Johnson work kind of have a presence in this conversation? Because when I close my eyes and I think about the word design, I keep thinking about all these Swiss and German and Italians that I know. I don't really it doesn't immediately conjure like a bunch of Black folk, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, no. That building is Black modernism. It really is this moment where the best of design around the world met Eunice Johnson. And it was like, yeah, the typewriter's cute. It would be cuter if it was red alligator.
That sounds like Eunice Johnson.
You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
The bringing of those worlds together. So I wanna thank, you know, the Richard Driehaus Foundation. No, I mean you, but also like, you know, Art Design Chicago for like creating these platforms where we can have these conversations, right? And then there are all these, you know, and so in that sense, the bank is this moment where we can kind of reflect not just on art, but also design, like kind of the lives of people.
Well, I also think it's great that you chose this location because it's accessible. It's accessible. Not everything happens on the north side. I mean, it just doesn't. And so you've got something. Oh, do I hear an applause? And I live on the north side, so I know not everything happens on the north side. And so what you've done here is you've given a space and a place where anyone can come. And I understand you do spin some records here and have a little fun.
Yeah.
And then, but you can also come for, a contemplative time and see an art exhibition or pull a book off a shelf and sit down and be quiet and enjoy your time. And so, I think you've given a treasure here.
Thank you. All right, so listen, because I ain't never seen this many people in this room, and because the bank is making an attempt to really open up in new ways, we need y'all to come back here and help us understand what this thing could be. And I think that this exhibition is one way of us trying to figure out, okay, what can the bank do? But it's like, well, we don't have to be a sports bar. I don't want to be a sports bar, right? We need to be other things, but it requires the collective intelligence in this room in order for that to happen. So we're gonna make sure that, team, that on people's way, as people are leaving, that they have a way to kind of sign up and make sure they can come to this thing. And now I'm kind of like, oh, those yellow patent leather vinyl crocodile couches look really good next to the bar. That bar is really nice. Maybe we should be, having some tea and having a little drink and listening to some, brother Dwayne up in here, and that could be a really good time. That sounds like a very good time. But I think I want to close by just saying, not thank you, but I appreciate the legacies, the generational legacies that you and your daddy and your mama and others like y'all have shown me, because it meant that we have models where it was like, oh no, we should think audaciously without a little bit of cash, and we should do it in black space.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The one thing I will say is that at Johnson Publishing Company, we've been collecting art for, I guess, 60 years. And gosh, that's as long as I am old. Yes, we've been collecting art for 60 years.
45.
That's the incredible Benjamin Button. That's not me. And so I remember very well my father saying, he was a trustee at the Art Institute, and he ended up being a life trustee there. And he said, I go to the Art Institute and I go to their meetings, and I'm surrounded by all these paintings by masters. And he said, when I build an office building, I want to be surrounded by black masters. And so that's actually how the collection started. And so I think that's, collecting art for us, for the company, and for my parents. And it really was my mother who really was the real collector. And I have to tell you, you definitely wanted to negotiate with my father and never wanted to negotiate with my mother. She was much, much tougher. She was a steel magnolia. So anyway, I've grown up with art. It has been an intrinsic part of my life. And so to be able to share this collection and to be able to share it with you, Theaster, and so many other African-American artists. And, our company gave artists a home. We gave them a chance when nobody was buying their art. I mean, we bought Elzer Couture when nobody was buying couture. I mean, this is what you can do with vision and with support. And so I think it's important that we support each other in no uncertain terms.
Ladies and gentlemen, Linda Johnson Rice! Whatever! Thank you all for coming. Linda and I are going to be downstairs on the first floor near the bar drinking water. Y'all go to the second floor and get out of this room because it's hot. Thank you so much. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Love you.